am Kalyani Vallath. I am the teacher of all these people who are joining us in this session. Sir, we are an institute that trains in English literature and associated subjects.
Okay.
Students from all over India. So as part of our English literature education, we have also been doing a lot of extra things because English literature is all about culture. It's all about arts and society. So Anand Haridas has started this series of talks 3 months ago. It is called Let's Talk Films, where we met a lot of personalities from the film industry. And it has inspired us a lot to understand more about the industry and also to expand our thinking and maybe even to do even more research. We already do research in films, but even more research in films to understand an art from the inside is very important and valuable. So we are greatly looking forward to your talk, sir. So Mr. Ajith Kumar is one of the most acclaimed film editors in Malayalam film industry and all over India. And Anand, I invite you to please introduce our guest.
Thank you, Kalyani. Welcome, Ajith, to this show. Let's talk film. Because as Kalyani has explained, Vallath education is basically trying to redefine the contours of education and bring in elements that can add value to literature studies. So in this context, it's a great fortune that we have with us award-winning editor B. Ajith Kumar this is the 11th edition of Let's Talk Film. Ajith has worked with many masters of the industry and he has directed a film himself. But what makes it extremely special that we have him with us today is that he started off as a literature student from the Institute of English under the University of Kerala. So to start with, Ajith, how was your journey from English literature to the amazing world of visuals, that of films?
Yeah, that was not a very planned journey, just occurred like that. So, because I was interested in literature, I was studying literature. And also, we used to watch a lot of films, as all of us do. And somehow actually, to accompany a friend of mine, I wanted to write. I just wrote the entrance examination to the FTA, and somehow I got it. So then there was no looking back then. I mean, once I started doing films, then I liked it, and started working on films, and a lot more films at the institute. So all that was not very, very planned. It happened like that. But anyway, that background in English literature, yeah, it has helped me. I don't know. I just wanted to become a teacher or something like that, or a journalist, or whatever. That is usually what you have as a career option when these were the career options that you had in mind when studying literature. But suddenly it happened otherwise. So, I mean that's how it happened. Okay, so then it was like the similarities and also the differences between these two mediums. All that, I mean, it took a while to understand. When I started studying films or film making, as it's not film appreciation or film studies, this is film making. So when you start film making films, it's more like maybe creative writing or something, but a little more technological. You have to deal with technology, you have to deal with gadgets, you have to deal with machines, and you have to deal with a lot of people. You're a writer, you only have to deal with yourselves, or maybe an imaginary audience. But here you have to, in the making process itself, you have to deal with hundreds of people. So all that was different.
Yeah, well, like you have raised a very valid point. Like we as Kalyani said, that we are all literature students over here listening to you. So the most accepted notion is that studying literature as a career option will the options are open before you. The conventional thing are being a teacher or a journalist. But then we have you as an editor. So you said that you by accident you appeared for the entrance exam for the Film and Television Institute of India, the FTII. So what is like for they might be interested in knowing more about your life at the Film Institute. So can you just recall your experience with the FTII? Because what we are trying to do through the series and many other activities at Vallath Education is opening up the avenues for literature students, making them aware about other possibilities of what a literature student can do. And you have set a glorious example that you completed literature studies and then you moved on to FTI and became one of the most celebrated editors. So we would like to hear more from you, more about your life and experience at FTI.
Yeah, life. Yeah, in the sense, see, we didn't, as I was telling you, it was, we didn't, at that time, we didn't know anything about filmmaking at all because now the situation is different. Everyone has got a camera in his pocket. So in the 1990s, early 1990s, it was very difficult to get hold of even a still camera, or even if you had a still camera, you had to pay like 100 rupees for 36 frames, which is, then you have to develop it, then you have to, that was a very exclusive club filmmakers, and now it is not like that. Everyone makes films. Anybody can make a reel. So at that time, and also editing. As far as editing is concerned, I didn't know anything about editing. Like I didn't know how these films came to be. It was, theoretically, you have read about editing. You know that people cut the film, the positive print of the film, and then splice it together using tapes and all. That is technical knowledge. But I've never seen a film. I had never seen a film roll as such. A 400 feet film roll that they used to shoot on. I had never seen. But at that time, the Film Institute had one thing that they didn't expect you to know anything during admissions. Whether you had any previous background in filmmaking or whether you're a fresher, a new entrant into this field, they treated you equally. So what were we were
so like the FTI don't expect the applicants to know more about films.
Yeah, at that time it was like that. So, but there was a very rigorous there was an entrance test which I passed. Then there was a 4-day orientation course at the institute. You had to go there. You had to attend all these sessions where they introduced you to the very very basic aspects of filmmaking, and based on that, and they used to show films every day. They used to show a film, and then we had discussions on those films. And then after 4 days, there was another written test, and then there was a group discussion, and then there was an interview. So it was not very easy to get in because there were only 40 seats at that time. And there was only one such film institute. So at that time, I don't know, I never expected that I'll get in, but what helped me actually when I look back at it now must have been my background in English literature. Because although I didn't know anything about filmmaking, I knew something about narrative. I knew something about stories. I knew how stories are constructed. From a very general point of view. But it is as I was saying mentioning earlier, there are lot of differences between filmmaking and writing a short story. But still, there is something very basic that is common to it. You tell stories. You have to construct stories. You have to manipulate the viewer or the audience, or you have to affect them. You have to, you have to influence them. You have to emotionally affect them. All those things are common for a film, or you have to convey a message in such a way that it results in some kind of an action. Whether it is a film or an essay or a story or a poem or whatever. Maybe the action is not very obvious, but at least a social change or a change, some change in the mind or whatever, mind or body or the society or whatever. So that basic aspect of communication, when I look back at it now, I think that a certain grasp about the basics of communication and how to construct a narrative, that helped me throughout that process. Like, even though I was introduced newly to the entire technological and aesthetic medium of films, this background actually helped me to find my, what do we say, navigate within that space, like to get the moorings, get the directions. So that was what helped me. So once you get into the film institute, then uh, at first you see everything because you're a literature student. You tend to see everything from the point of view of literature. I mean, from the point of view of the from the background. Your background is in literature, and then you always have this great canon of literature that you have imbibed into your, I mean, your consciousness and your awareness. So you tend to see everything from the point of view of literature, and you try to communicate things. But then the problem comes, like literature, the words are quite abstract, but visuals are very concrete. So that is the basic problem that you face as a literature student when you try to take a camera and put a lens and then point it at something. You get a very abstract image, a very concrete image. When you are writing, you can say a tree. You can just write a tree. It is left to the audience to imagine what kind of a tree it is. It can be a coconut tree, it can be a mango tree. But as a filmmaker, I can only show either a coconut tree or a mango tree. It's very concrete. So from there onwards, then you figure out, like, okay, this is not literature, of course. Narrative is there, communication is there, but you need to get hold of something else to actually communicate through visuals and sound. So that 3 years in those 3 years in the film institute was, I mean, I don't know whether I was when I came out of the institute, I was not very clear about what I want to do or what I had learned or anything, because those were like what we call tumultuous years. In the sense, almost out of the 3 years, 2 years were gone in strike against the government, hunger strikes, protests, and I mean, it was time like that. So you learned a lot about society, you learned a lot about politics firsthand, which you couldn't get in Kerala anyway at that time. And you get to know people from all over India. Students were from various cultures. So all those things help. Maybe as a filmmaker, later on, these are the things that help. But and the craft, of course, that practical aspect of the craft was taught very well. That was practical, basically. There was no theory. Actually, there were theory classes which I never attended. Nobody ever attended theory classes. Theory classes, those hours were actually kept apart for other activities like. So that was something like that, and the 3, 4, 5. It actually took 5 years because of the strikes and the other mess that happened because of the change in administration, change in the central government, everything. So it actually took 5, 6 years to get out of that place. Although I went for a 2-year course. So that's a different and long story, but anyway.
It's usually a 2-year course.
It was a 2-year course. It goes on, it keeps on changing. Like every time, sometimes it becomes 3 years, sometimes it becomes 2 years. Then now there is a 1-year course also for television, a lower, a kind of a crash course also is there. 6-month courses. At that time, there was only one course. It was 3 year. So they made it into a 2-year course when we joined. The year we joined, then we had a strike against it, and they made it back into a 3-year course. But it took 5 years. So.
Okay, so now there are more options. That is what we have. Okay, so you in your when you are speaking about the parallels between literature and film, you made a very interesting observation of connecting with the audience, be it the reader or the audience. The ultimate purpose is to connect with the audience. Okay, so today we have titled this conversation as Framing the Story, because films are basically narratives that connect to a wide spectrum of audience, like the book or literature. This connect to a wide range at the same time. We have an entire hall of viewers watching the film from different perspectives, and we have supposed to connect each one of them. And as we say that, there's an accepted notion that the directors are the dictators of the film. There is a famous quote by John Abraham. He said, "I am the Hitler of my film." So directors design this narrative. In this system, where do the editor come? What is the role of the editor?
Yeah, editing, if you look at it very simply, it's a matter of basically, what do you say? You have a lot of stuff coming to you. You have to basically select whatever will work. And then you have to be order in the sense it's because film cinema is running in time, temporal. So to order chronologically what should come first, what should come next. And then also how long each and every shot or a visual should stay on the screen, that timing. So these are the three simple aspects of editing. But when you consider that aspect is there in everything. I mean, even in literature that is there. You might have a number of images, a lot of images or a lot of situations or emotions that you want to express. And then of course, a writer, even before writing, maybe he is selected. That process of selection is there. That process of ordering is also there. Where, I mean, what should come first? Which paragraph what should I write in the first paragraph?
You decide the narrative. You decide the narrative.
And also how much space, how much time, how much pages, how many paragraphs should you devote to exploring something. So this is, but there it's basically, or even somebody who makes a painting, he also has to take these decisions, like which colors to use, what images to use, and where to place them within the frame of a painting. That is the composition. So all those things. I mean, these are part of the creative process. But what happens in cinema is that since it's a technologically dependent, it's a medium that is very much dependent on technology. Everything needs specialized people. I mean, there is a craft that is to be learned. I mean, to operate earlier it was very difficult. I mean, you have to operate an editing machine, and also you have assorted other things to do. I mean, you have to wind the films, you have to take care of the film, and even now you have a lot of footage coming in. You have to back them up. You have to do a lot of technical stuff. So you need specialized people there. I mean, the director can edit. I mean, ideally the director should edit. But it doesn't happen because that requires a certain other kind of manual and technological skill. So as the cinema is a child of the industrial revolution. Everyone is saying that. So what happens in the industrial revolution, in the assembly line? There are specializations. There are specialized jobs so your entire process is broken down into various smaller segments, and people who are specialized are assigned those jobs so that the industry works smoothly. So the editor's role is basically a role because it's an industrial role. It's a part of the industry. As part of the industry, as part of the workflow of the industry, there should be somebody specialized to handle these things. Obviously, there is an aesthetic part to it. So that aesthetic part also becomes specialized in a little way because the construction of the narrative. So, I mean, basically, if you look at our contemporaries, most of the editors become directors. Many of the people who have come out of FTA as editors, they generally, from David Dhawan to Raju Hirani, all those are editing graduates. And in Malayalam also recently, Mahesh and all them, they have started directing. So this aesthetic process, although the editor does it separately and he is a little more skilled in constructing a narrative, ultimately it is the director's vision. But the director might not be able to execute it in a very precise manner, as precise as an editor, as an editor can do. Maybe that's the same thing with cinematography. The image is in the mind of the director. But the director himself might not be able to technically and aesthetically, do it in the proper way in which he wants it to be. So this is so it becomes a collaborative work, and also there are a lot of specializations involved in sound and music and everything. So all together, when it all comes together harmoniously, the film makes an impact.
Yeah, true. So that brings us back to the role of director in making or in having a overall picture about the film as an end product. Before that, I'd like the participants to know that the Ajith's filmography is very interesting. It has got films from all genres or all segments. It has got films from masters to films for the masses. So, but what stands out from Ajith's filmography is the work that he has done with master filmmaker Adoor Gopalakrishnan. He has worked for 3 films, starting from Nirel Kutta or The Shadow Kill, as a translation is. Adoor, as we all know, is a filmmaker who keeps absolute control over his film. So, Ajith, our participants would, and we are all interested in listening from you. What is a brief that a filmmaker, a master like Adoor, gives to the editor when you start working on the films?
No, as far as somebody like Adoor is concerned, Adoor has a very, very clear view of how the film is going to turn, what the film is going to turn into, because even his short numbering is from 1 to like 700. He doesn't divide into scenes. I mean, of course, he divides the script into scenes for the purpose of production. Production is you need to have scene breakdowns for locations and all. Otherwise, he's generally numbers the shots from 1 to 10. Suppose it is 1 to 10 in the first scene. He starts the second scene from 11. Generally, the directors, they start the second scene from again 1. So the first scene, although it is written 10, there might be 15 shots. But in Adoor's case, it's not like that. 10 shots it is written, then it will be 10 shots only. So
So,
the next
so that precise about shots.
Yeah, he's very precise, and if you look at that, his craft has evolved over time, and it is crystallized to a certain extent, so that there is no experimentation, and it constrains itself. I mean, he has always worked within constraints, and he has managed to make all these films with very, very, very low budget, but at the same time not compromising on quality. That is possible because his craft has been crystallized within those constraints. So he is very clear. He doesn't want to experiment at all. He never. So that in that way he's got very, very precise control. So as an editor also, what there you have to do is you have to just understand what he is trying to do. So he's taken maybe in a few sequences, like a musical sequence or some sequences, there will be a little more coverage. Otherwise, it will be 1:1. There is nothing redundant. So in those sequences, maybe you will be able to experiment a little bit, but then you obviously you have to you have to determine the timing. Of course, even Adoor has to, because you cannot cut the camera when you want. It has to run. It has to run to a certain extent so that you capture the emotions of the actors and all. But he knows the pace of the film. Then you have to just basically visualize what he is trying to do and then execute it. So that it's very easy actually. It's not what is not easy is to understand what he is thinking.
Okay.
And doing it is very easy.
So the first part where you communicate, when he communicates the story or the design of the film, that is the hard part in it.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not difficult because all his films are like similar. In the sense, since you have watched many of his films and you are quite familiar with his craft, with what he is generally doing, then it doesn't become a big issue. I mean, it has never become, because he has never briefed me anything. I do something and he watches it, and he suggests some changes. He will be sitting there. I'll be cutting. He'll be watching. He'll be telling me, no, this is not what I meant. I mean, that should come here. Okay, then we'll try that. Very, very minimal. Very minimal effort. Because as I said, because his craft is very, you can say it is not very flexible in that sense, like, because there is no scope for any experiment. He doesn't want that also.
Okay. Like in contrast to what the style that you have just mentioned, it's very interesting to get a glimpse of how a master like Adoor Gopalakrishnan works. So in contrast to that style, there are the films by Rajeev Ravi, maybe, for example. He's one of the ace cinematographer himself. His films are very lyrical and very visually vibrant. So, like you said, when working with Adoor, it's very clear that expectation is very clear. You just have to get in line with what the director is thinking. Whereas in a film by maybe Rajeev Ravi, you must be flooded with images. So, what is the challenge that you have as an editor when you work with filmmakers like Rajeev Ravi?
Yeah, correct. Because Rajiv's Annay Rasulim had about 65 hours of footage.
Okay.
so, so, so that it is not like not that he shoots without any idea. He also has got a very clear idea of how he wants. But the way you handle actors and way you picturize, the scenes are different. There is a lot of coverage. Sometimes there will be 2 cameras, sometimes there will be 3 cameras. So the idea there is to get something new out of the actors. The idea is to let them improvise. Sometimes you will just go on taking. Like in Comedy Corner, we have taken 32 takes for one shot. So with Dulkar, when you look at it, like it is a very, very nuanced changes only. But somehow it doesn't work for him. Like 32, after 32 takes, he'll tell you, because mostly I'll be on location, so he'll say the 25th one is okay. The rest of it is all gone. So let us go. So that happens. So you try to extract more nuanced performance. At some point you might fail, some point you might get something. So you go on experimenting. And because also Adoor's craft, his craft was developed in a time when it was film. Rajiv started with digital, and he has got a very good command over the image also. He knows. He knows the lensing. He knows where to place the camera and what all possible variations can be done regarding the lens or the performance. And performance wise, he won't brief the actors so much. He'll let them perform. Let them perform and then see it, watch it, and then suggest some changes. Then do it again. So that is a way. The narrative actually, the details of the narrative emerge in that process. It actually evolves. So that means a lot of footage. And then, unless I am there on the set, it will be very difficult for me to figure out. What was the intention? For example, Annay Rasul, I was not on the set. I had this 65 hours of footage and I struggled with it for about 3 to 4 months. But finally, then I constructed something out of that. So that's a different process altogether.
Yeah, true. But then for you'll have to go through all the footage to pick up the right moment, or will there be any guidance or tips from the director or the ADs, assistant directors?
No, script will be there. No, if there is a script, generally there will be a blueprint. So you know the narrative, basically what is the story. What is the content of the scene. But I generally watch all the takes, whether the director briefs me or not. I watch. I don't think many of the editors do that now. So you have a report saying that this is the okay take, this is the NG, these are NGs. Not good. And you can just follow that report, and you can engage an assistant to just order everything, all the okay takes one after the other, and then you can start constructing the narrative out of only the okay takes. But usually I don't do that unless I am on the set. If I am on the set, I will know that okay, this is the okay take, but one small portion of that previous take had something that can be taken. That I'll know. I'll remember.
Okay.
But this thing, if I'm not on the set, then I'll watch all the takes, and maybe I'll get something that suits the context more from an NG take rather than an okay take. That all happens. That happens all the time.
Okay.
Nowadays.
So that's the editor's role. Like you go through the not necessarily follow the okay takes only, but then take subtle improvisation using the not good takes also, some take portions also.
Yeah, sometimes it happens. Many of the times the take becomes okay if becomes engine mostly because of technical problems, light, whatever. I mean, or it got cut in between, or somebody crosses. It's all unusable. But there will be a number of usable takes for a filmmaker like Rajeev, and especially there will be two more cameras. So which angle you have to choose? I mean, performance is fine, but the performance might be captured better from another angle. So you might choose that.
Yeah. So the transition from analog film or the physical film to digital, did that help the filmmaker or did it increase the workload of the editor? Because the visuals or the footage that you have to work on might have increased largely, hugely. Earlier, there was a restriction. The 400 feet film roll was the restriction. Now there's no restriction. They can shoot as many visuals they want, as many takes that they want.
See, to edit a film, earlier it used to take 3 months, even now it takes 3 months. And because the footage is small. But at the same time, this is not something this analog to digital transition I would like to point out has happened everywhere, in every medium. For example, when we were students, we used to write, if there is a question in the examination to write a 3,000 word essay, I used to write from it is 3,000 300 words or whatever. I don't remember now. That will be 3 pages. So you have so many points to be the immediate cause of the Second World War. So you have to write in 3 pages. So you start from page 1 and you go up to the end of the page 3 where you conclude the thing, and you do it within 20 minutes of your time in the examination hall. But you are so precise that because all the editing has happened in the mind. Now with the computer, if you are asked to write a 200 about the immediate cause of the Second World War, 200 words, you will take more time. You are going to take 3 times more time to write it. You will be cutting, pasting, you will be polishing, you will be deleting, you will be searching the internet, whatever. So ultimately, this earlier when we used to write letters on an inland letter card or a postcard, it has got a limit. It has got a constraint where you have to tell everything that you want to tell within the 2 folds of that. 2 sides of that
postcard or the inlet.
So you are very, very precise, very brief, and very planned. There won't be even a one. You won't strike out even a word. When we used to, but you can't write an email, even an email like that. I can't. I will go on polishing. I will go on cutting something out and rephrasing and all. So that is a transition from analog to digital. So as somewhere we had studied as Plato said, when the writing was invented, people's memory or intelligence became reduced. Because earlier they used to remember everything, now they are writing it down.
Okay.
Like that. Now the process has become quite easy in the sense that you can always cut and paste, you can always rewrite, you can always re-edit.
Even the send message can be recalled and edited.
Yeah, even. But something was there. There was another version of, another scenario in which it was even more difficult. See, film editing, even when you used to edit on films, you could always cut the film and put it back because it was physical film. So you have 2 shots and you want to insert another shot in between these 2 shots. You could just unsplice the shot. Take out the tape, you could cut the other shot and put it in and then join it again. But it was not possible on video, even at that time. When you are editing from one magnetic tape to another, you have to very clearly think about the entire program. If it has to be a 20-minute program, then you have to plan, like you are writing an exam paper. You have to plan the first, how long should the first shot be, and then go on assembling it one after the another till then. You cannot put a shot in between on video. On film, you could just cut and put another shot in between. But on video, it is impossible. So we had all this, we used to do a lot of documentaries and videos using tape at that time. And that actually gave me very, very precise sense of timing. How to structure it in the mind before you actually cut it. So that training actually it helps me even now because it makes my work even faster. I mean, I finish, but still I to take 3-4 months to edit a film like Annayam Rasool. That is the problem.
True. So that brings us to your own film, Eada, which is translated, can be translated to as Here. So Here is, or Eada is like, there's a contemporary take on the realities around us. It's a powerful political statement, a mirror turned against our own life, contemporary life. So basically, for those who haven't watched Eada, it's a love story set against the violent political climate of a northern Kerala village. So, Ajith, how did you reach to that film, or how did that film happen to you? How did you start working on that theme?
No, I actually didn't want to direct anything. I mean, I was like quite busy working, but at the same time, of course, as a person who is interested in politics, I was watching whatever is happening in my home state, Kerala, and of course, this the violence, the continuing violence in Kannur from the 1970s to 2008. After that, the violence is have been subsided, maybe temporarily or I don't know, good if permanently. So that was always, I mean, the particular role of that violence in the political spectrum of Kerala is what had interested me, because the government even now in Kerala and the previous government also had around 40% of its ministers from one single district, Kannur. So that shows how important Kannur is and how that violence feeds the political dynamics of our state. So I was thinking about that, and it just suddenly occurred me as a spark, like why can't I do something like putting Romeo and Juliet into Kannur? An interesting take, that's all. So then, okay, so the Romeo and Juliet has been remade like 1,000 times. Every time it has been successful. Like from Ram, what was that Bensali's film? Even Annayam Rasool is Romeo and Juliet only.
Hmm.
So
That's one story that can be put in different contexts.
Yeah. So the context was here very relevant. Like it's almost like a feud. The CPIM RSS conflict. I mean, there is no ideology, there is no politics or anything. It's almost like a clash of clans, like feudal clans or feudal loyalties. So that is how I interpreted it. There are historical reasons of how this came about which I am quite conscious, and I have hinted that in the film at many times. But the contemporary situation is almost like a feudal, feud, clan rivalry or whatever, tribal rivalry, whatever. So I thought it was interesting, so then I tried to work out a script and just did it.
Hmm.
And I think it made an impact also.
True. It was a very powerfully narrated film. Like it brought out the contrast or the feud, as you said, against a love story, a ill-fated love story, and the impact was good. So, how long did it take to actually complete the project?
It took like about 1 or 2 months of pre-production and like about around 57 days of shoot, and then that is 3, 4, 6 months altogether.
So, coming back to your work as an editor. So, when you start working as a editor, what will be your starting point? Like we discussed about handling footages that can go up to 65 hours. So there will be a complete pace for the film, a pace for the narrative that this particular film has to make. So who sets that pace? The director gives you the idea, or will you let the visual speak for itself and gather a pace of its own as an editor?
Yeah, see, the pace generally, I mean, the director generally doesn't, I mean, they will have a sometimes. I mean, there will be a pace that is because people will think of it in a slow pace, and then there will be slower camera movements, there will be slower action. I mean, the people will be acting in a not a very hurried manner. So there will be a certain rhythm to the visual itself. So that rhythm has to be there when you shoot it. And if you want it to be a slow film, then you have to be careful about that while shooting itself. And if you want it to be a fast-paced film or a fast-paced narrative, I mean, a film can have both within its time. For a particular scene or sequence to have a certain pace, that pace has to be there in the mind of the director and the cameraman and all of them and the actors while shooting itself. So that has to be set there. I mean, you can actually artificially create a faster or slower pace later. You can slow down visuals. I mean, you can actually slow down and you can actually repeat visuals or whatever to slow it down. Or you can hold on to visuals for a longer time than that is necessary and so create a certain feeling of slowness. But that is something that the editor does artificially. But as a natural organic process, it should happen. It should start while filming itself. It should be there. I mean, the actor's face, and I mean, that can be planned. That can be very well planned. If you have that pace in your mind while you are directing, I mean, then you know how the camera should. No. This camera, the track should be a little slower. That is the mood of this scene, or it should be quite fast, or the pan should be fast, or the actor should move a little bit more. I mean, they should not take that much time there because this scene doesn't have that much time on the screen. Will not have that much time on the screen finally, so you have to act a little. I mean, faster. So all this happens. All this starts from the filming process itself. Only if it does starts like that, you can edit it in a seamless way. Otherwise, you will have to artificially build it up. Now, then you make a cut according to the rhythm that is presented or expressed in the frame, and then you see that this is slower than what is required. So then you try to make it fast. You say that there is a lag, there is a lack of tempo, so you try to make it artificially fast. It might work, it might not work. Generally, it doesn't work. That tempo is artificial. So people will be distracted basically. People will be out of tune, like, out of rhythm while watching it. Like so, but some films, then you put some music, then you put a very heavy background score to cover up all these problems, and then people will just listen to, and even if they hoot in the theater, nobody is going to hear that because the music is so loud. So that is how some films work. But in our films, you are trying to like be very clear while shooting itself. Like this is the pace. So Kammati Pada, for example, is a slow film. Slow film in the sense a long film, but the average length of a shot in that film is 3 seconds.
Okay.
It's so cut so fast you don't even know. I mean, people have always told me that Vinayakan jumps from the second floor of the one jump. He just jumps down very daringly, but it's actually 8 shots within that fall. So there are 8 cuts down.
That single sequence where he spots the man downstairs attacker downstairs, takes the jump.
Jumps into the down. There are 8 cuts in that fall.
Okay, that's a new information. Like
You
just
can
never
count
felt
it.
like that.
People always say, "Oh, Vinayak is such a brave guy. He just jumped down." No,
Okay.
he was on a rope. We tried for a full night to get him jump. I mean, hanging him, pulling him up down, and then took like maybe 3, 4 frames out of each shots and made that jump.
Okay. And
But
made it
you
appear
know,
in a one single jump, in a single steady shot.
it appears like one single jump, but it's not. It's a number of shots cut together. So like that, but you know, while shooting itself, you know how we are going to accomplish this. So somehow we get those tiny bits of visuals and forget the rest.
Okay. So, like that's a very interesting inside information. From in one of our earlier interactions, we had editor Harigita Sadashivan who assisted you in many films. He was here talking to us, and he said that you have a distinctive style of yours in editing. So, if you were to describe your own editing style, how would that be?
I'm not very sure about that. I edit whenever whatever material comes to me, I try to just cut it so that it is most effective. I mean, I have in mind various parameters. I mean, not consciously, but when you look back at it, maybe I'm thinking what kind of an audience I am communicating to, what kind of content it is. I mean, how is it going to emotionally affect the people? All these things you continuously think about all this. I mean, after a while, it becomes a practice. Like you don't have to think about it. You just feel it. Like when you see this short, you know whether it will work or not. I mean, to a certain audience, given all these parameters, given all this context, whether it will work or not, that becomes the almost a gut level thing. So I mean, I don't think nowadays. So it somehow gels together. I mean, that's after 25 years. So I don't know. I mean, a style also can be uh, identified in retrospect only. So I don't know. I don't watch my films. I mean, whatever I have edited, I don't watch. I rarely go to the theater, or I mean, I don't watch it again, except a very few films. Sometimes with other people, if I have to watch. So I mean, I am not very conscious. But some films, even now, when I watch it, I mean, I think, I mean, it's not bad. So there must be something in it.
Okay. So, like we discussed about that pace of the shot or the pace of the film, that the rushes that appear before you. So, will you get an idea about the overall picture, or do you have this? Will there be a mention in the script that says that the film is designed like this, and then the visuals, if the visuals that are provided for editing, they have a different space. Do you have any experience of such conflicts happening, where the blueprint that you have in mind is not matching with the material that you have in?
That happens many times. That happens. Then that goes into long discussions, sometimes reshooting, sometimes getting other visuals.
Where tell the director that the visuals are not matching with the idea.
Yeah, some people understand that, some people don't. So, so, so then maybe we somehow sometimes I've written scenes. I will have to write more scenes, shoot them, put them back, and see how it works. All that happens. Yeah, because of this mismatch, as you said, it's not only the pace. I mean, whether some performance is working or, I mean, while shooting, they would have thought that this is working, but when you put it with the previous and the next scenes, I mean, this might just be jarring. It just sticks out. So then you can try to correct it with choosing various takes and whatever angles, whatever available material you have, you try to make it work in the context of the previous and the coming, I mean, next scene and or whatever, or in the context of the whole film. But sometimes it doesn't work, so you have to discard it. Sometimes you discard it, then some connection will be lost, some emotional progression will be lost. All that can happen. So then you might have to reshoot it, or you might have to reorder the scenes in such a way that this becomes connected, or all that process happens when this mismatch happens, as you said. Like, it's not only the pace, as far as the content is concerned, also it's there.
Okay. So earlier in this conversation, we talked about how films should connect with the audience. So you have your filmography has films from all genres. You have edited all sort of films, and you have let us into the very interesting backside stories of shots or things that we have seen in the camera, but we never thought of this might have been done like this. So, but then when you actually made a film of your own, you chose a subject which is politically very sensitive or politically vibrant. So my question is, like, what I am interested to know is, uh, do films have that power to make an impact on the society? Because we are showing the real a story based on a real situation or a mirroring the actual reality of the society. So when you choose a film, when you think about making a film, uh, do you believe in the power of films that can influence the society?
No, I never thought that films can influence society to us more than us. No, it cannot absolutely have no influence, I would say. But I see it from another side. I think films are just symptoms of what is happening in the society. So if there is an inner disease, then there are some pustules. There are some symptoms that show there is some unrest also, like for the body politic or whatever. So films are and cultural expressions are all in that way symptomatic. Symptomatic in the sense, I make a film on Kannur politics. If I didn't do it, somebody else would have done it today or tomorrow. That was the that is the logic of a, because even now we live in a partially democratic. We used to live in a partially democratic system. There was always a space for pointing this out. Like, okay, this is, you cannot take this violence for granted. So somebody has to say that. So I by chance became the person who made that film. That film has got its own. I mean, reason for its own existence, which is the political situation of Kerala. If a film like that doesn't happen at all, then there is some problem with us. So I made it. That's all. Then other people also made it. So I did a role. I don't think that there is any power for that film or whatever, but it has to be made. It is part of our discourse. I mean, it's part of our democratic discourse. I have to express this point of view. Somebody has to express this point of view.
Okay.
Apart from eulogizing and the martyrs and all, that happens all the time. So somebody has to tell the other side. So I accidentally or by chance or by historical necessity, you can say, I became that person. So that's all. But on the other hand, the effect of that film was that it actually had a slight impact on the entire discourse about violent politics in Kerala, which made it not very easy for the perpetrators to justify their violence. So that impact will be there. So as far as the relevance of that film is concerned, my only dream is that it should become irrelevant as soon as possible. If the relevance continues, then it is bad for us.
Okay. Okay, I love the way you contextualize films as the symptoms of whatever is happening in the society. For that matter, any form of art that comes out from a society reflects the health of that society, the sanity of that society.
Yes.
It's been a wonderful 1 hour talking to you, Ajith. Like you, I am sure that many of the participants listening to you might be inspired to take up film as a career. They are all literature students. So probably you can have a word of advice for them, which will guide them in future.
No, I mean, advice is not, but what I'll. So as you were mentioning, like how do we make films that communicate to people? So only way, what I would suggest is, of course, we all used to read a lot of books. That's fine. But at the same time, now what I see in cinema nowadays is that like most of the younger generation filmmakers are making films based on films. I mean, you see a lot of. I mean, I'm not saying just they're just copying films, but the world that is reflected in many of these films that I see recently are taken. They are taken from film, the world of film itself. I mean, world of culture. I mean, film or books or whatever. I mean, what we were always trying to do, as we were discussing, was to just look at the society. I mean, to live in that society and to feel what it is like to live in a. I mean, for example, this Kannur thing. I have never been in Kannur. I mean, I have never been in a violent situation in Kannur. I have never known a single person who is a first-hand victim of violence in Kannur. But I have known, because we were doing a lot of documentaries. I've been to conflict zones. I've seen the suffering of women. I've seen first-hand violence. I've experienced that. So I just transposed all of those feelings into Kannur. I mean, I've never even shot in Kannur in this film. It's all shot in Calicut only. But I've traveled widely in Kannur. I've seen all the Tayyams. I've been a regular visitor at all the Perinkaliyatams. And I've lived there, I've slept there, I've interacted with people there. So I know how they think. I mean, intuitively I know how they think, how they react. Likewise, I have been in Kashmir, I've been in Nagaland, I've been in Northeast, in Bihar, in Nepal, wherever there was violence. I've been through that. So I know how people suffer, how people behave in such a conflict situation. So these are things that you get not from films. I am not modeling this on Battle of Algiers or on Thin Red Line or anything. I've seen this somewhere. I've seen these people somewhere. I've talked with them, I've met them, I've ate with them, I've lived with them. So that is what makes our films. I mean, our films basically our huge documentary background. We used to do documentaries like before we entered properly into the feature film scenario. I've done like a number of documentaries. I've traveled with documentary crews. So you have to be open to the world outside yourself instead of looking at the. Now people always look at the phone. No, they don't look out of the window.
True.
So that's a second-hand kind of thing that your films also become second-hand.
Mhm.
That's the only advice that I can give anyone. Like just
And
look out of your window.
okay, that's beautiful. And also, like in the beginning, you said about how everyone is a filmmaker now because we all have the camera or the phone becomes an extension of our body. Unlike the past, where you interact with people, you talk to people. Now it's all in the camera that we see, in the phone that we see. So does that make filmmaking? There is a take off the seriousness of filmmaking, the art of filmmaking, or the does it take the emotion out of the films?
I know that I don't know because anyway, it is a better thing that because it's almost like writing. It is writing with image. I mean, it's like literacy. It is everywhere. Everywhere there are image capturing devices in your hands and over your heads also surveillance cameras. So,
Okay.
so, so I mean what the problem is, as you were suggesting, there is one problem with this because image is so ubiquitous, like it has lost its effect. Because in our generation, I mean, to see a big image, you have to go to a theater. That happens once in a month. Or when the television came also, I mean, it is a small image, it was there, but that also you have to struggle to, I mean, it is not, now it is in your pocket, it is in front of you all the time. And you see all sorts of images from all parts of the world. I mean, there are artificial and generative, I mean, AI, it creates fantastic images, which, I mean, you can't compete with it as an image maker.
Mhm.
So whatever you show in films, I mean, however great the image is, it fails to make an impact. See Malayakote Valiban, the image has lost its power
Mhm.
in that sense. So then what remains? Then what remains is the drama. It's what remains is the emotions, what remains the conflicts, the situations, and that is what captures attention for the film viewers nowadays. So the image has almost become secondary in cinema, which is a contradiction in, I mean, preposterous statement, but it is like that.
So we have to live with it.
Yeah.
This is the evolution that we are witnessing right now.
Yes.
Okay. On that note, let's wind up and we will keep that in mind. The word of advice is open your windows and see the world outside, and bring in let the experience touch you, influence you before you speak about an art. Think about film as an art. So Kalyani, we can have a ending note.
Yes. To add to what you said, that word of advice to the students, what I understood from every session of Bloodstock Films is more or less the same thing. You are not like, you don't decide that you're going to be an actor or editor, or you most of the time you fall into it. And it is a happy accident. You learn from your situations, you keep your mind open. It's a process of growth and development, and there is no end to the trajectory of the people that we have met. They are I'm sure they've just begun. There is so much more that we expect from you, sir. It's so
Thank you.
heartening for my students also. Many of them are in a situation where they do not know what is the right career. Should we do this or that? We have all been through that confusion. Having studied at the Institute of English, I also started quite an unconventional career. It is not a traditional teacher that I have become. And I think I'm quite successful at what I'm doing. And the same thing I can feel from my career. It is so many challenges. You never know what is in store. You have to learn from it. And it makes you improve, become better and better and better at it. It is so wonderful that we talked to your story and your perspectives. That we understood so much more than you told us also from, the way you said it. Thank you so much. It is very inspiring. And I'm sure inadvertently you have actually made careers. It was not just a casual conversation. I'm sure many people who are now listening to you and who will listen to the recording will get some bricks to learn their foundations of their careers with. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you all for listening patiently and Anand, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kalyani.
Thank you.